means it really starts now. Thanks all for coming. I'm really looking forward to this. Also to the later night where we can sit back and talk. But now I am standing in front of you. So, can science point to God? I really wish that all of you got a good grasp of what I'm trying to do today. Really a scientific answer. Really not just any guesses, really scientific answer. Can science point to God? But first a bit about me. I am happily married. Yeah, I'm now in England, but I'm actually from Switzerland, so this is my family. I guess I can even do this. So this is me, maybe 5 years old. My family. My father is a Protestant pastor, or was a Protestant pastor. My mother was, and they're retired now. I mean, they're still here, but they're retired. She's a kindergarten teacher, and really all my family went into the humanities. So one studied, the younger studied social sciences, the sister studied law, and I was really the only one who wanted to study or loved first in school maths and science. But actually not the whole only one. In my family there was one more person, and this is my granddad. He really studied the same thing as me, electrical engineering in Zurich, and he studied this in 1933. Wow. And so here's actually his master thesis from 1937. Wow. This is pre-World War II. Think about it. Wow. And I really want to give you an impression. It's just such a special document that I just jump into this. So this is how it looks like inside of this book. So typewrite the text. If you have a formula, you have to be careful. You cannot edit a formula editor or something. In ink, you write this down, and you have to be all the more diligent and careful to write this thesis here. Here's also impressions from what he did. So these transformers, for instance, resistors, he did a certain high voltage experiment. This device is today 10 times smaller, 100 times smaller, so this is really from another time. Here's also his high-tech devices, latest technology. Why do I show you this? Because I believe this has a relevance. Also, Einstein used this technology and not ours. Einstein had to do this diligence to study the universe to really find out what it's all about. So, are you related to Einstein? I don't know. We can find this out one time. You could do a genetic test, yeah. I want to share a bit more about my grandfather. So he obviously married, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But marriage wasn't really his major thing. He really studied science, and after his graduation, he really had books full of a rack in his study room full of books of science. And when I was still young, I really marveled at his search for truth in the sciences. And I would want to read these books myself one time. And actually, I was able to when I studied electrical engineering at the exact same building as he did, 70 years later. Because also, I have to say, I came to believe in God because I saw that prayer works. I prayed for things, and really things happened. That's why I started believing in God. But you know, in this technical university, I got to really know science, and it got me struggling. If science has found out everything, where's there still room for God? So I had to wrestle with this myself. So this is a bit of an introduction now. We're coming now to something that also should introduce you more to this evening, and this is a game. So I would like to explain to you this game. It's about coins, and it's maybe still a bit easy introduction, but this has to do with science, because science is all about experiments, and this is basically also now a science experiment a bit we do together. So pay attention to the rules, and then we play this game, or actually the experiment. So everybody needs a coin. If you can grab a coin from somewhere, I have some coins. So I have plenty of coins here. Whoever has to get it from me, anybody has no coin? Okay, and then let me explain first before we do this. So everybody stand up like you do. We wait until everybody made it, standing up, and please only on my mark. Toss that coin, and if you put it on your hand, or you can do whatever. If it's heads, you stay standing, you stay in the game. If it's tails, you just sit down, and you're out of the game, or the experiment. And really only on my mark, and it didn't count. So the question is also, what do you think? Can you have a bit of silence? So what do you think? How many heads in a row will we see today? I mean, I don't ask everybody to guess, but I would say maybe 5 or 6. That's the prediction.
Sorry, what, after one toss?
No, somebody can toss heads a number of times and stay standing all the time, but eventually will sit down because he has a tail. So until only one person still standing, what do you think how many times we did it? And there's a mathematical law that states that this is, don't say the law, it's too complicated, but basically 5 or 6 times is this group of people. So if you can toss your coin the first time now. I mean, at least somebody said. Okay, very good. So let's stay standing. And toss your coin again. Okay, some are still standing, yeah? Heads, good, Catherine. Okay, number 3, toss your coin again. Okay, you sit down. Okay, we have 6 left. 5 left. Now 6. Okay, toss your coin again. That's good. Woo! Alright, good. Okay, go again, heads. Heads again.
It's not a real coin.
Does it throw tails this time?
It's still random, yeah.
Okay, go again. No, both of you.
Oh, heads.
Whoa! Go again. Wow. Go again. Okay, 7. Wow. Okay, go again. One more time. So wait a moment. We ask the following question: who does actually hands up? Who does actually think that she has a trick coin there in this picture? Wait. Okay, so you have the tails.
He flipped it and the tail.
Okay, then you have to sit down. Okay, we have to one still. So wait, James, wait. Now we do the vote. Who actually thinks he was genuine?
Yeah,
James was coming. Okay, good. Yeah, she maybe wasn't. Okay, genuine James. We believe. Go on. Do one more.
I got all I'll say is I got heads every time, and it's not mine, but heads again.
Okay, go again. have 10.
Again.
Wasn't it?
Heads.
10. He's the missing link. Wait. Silence, please. We have 10, that is basically 4 over prediction. So who still thinks that he is genuine?
I think he's got 2 heads.
Then you have to go down. Then you have to say, okay, who thinks he's having random coin? Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Who thinks that's random coin? I have to rephrase the question. Yeah, who thinks he has a random coin that has tails and heads?
Oh yeah.
Very good, okay. Can you do 5 more times, please?
Heads.
3.
Heads.
Wait. Okay, now again, the vote. Who thinks that this coin has a tails? Hands up now. We have, how many do we have that think he has a tails?
No.
Well, was that the vote?
Yeah.
Alright, he thinks. Go again, more 5.
Oh my God! Sorry,
There's too many who believe it.
He has a tail though.
Heads?
Heads.
Oh man.
Heads.
There's no way.
Okay, who now still thinks that he has there is a tails on it? Jacob. Okay, good.
No, I know this. Jacob
Jacob still thinks.
I would never do that.
Yes, you would. This is another coin.
Now let's actually finish the game. I think you got it. Thank you, everyone. He's in the conspiracy. He has a trick coin. So Jacob is so stubbornly thinking that he's always saying this is still probable. So keep this in mind. Keep this game in mind. I hope it made some sense. Let's actually now have the full story of the universe. I want to tell you the story of the whole universe. How do we know about it? We know about it because people really researched it, and those 2 guys have done it. This is obviously a book cover. The other one is not the book cover, but I didn't find the book cover where he's on it. That's Einstein. He really studied the beginning of the universe. The other one is Richard Feynman. I also read his books. He studied somehow the smallest pieces of the matter, and this also has to do with the beginning of the universe. And I can tell you, today we know scientifically really well how the universe started. So let's tell this story. This is how it started. This is a fireball, and it is as hot as you can imagine, and double and so much hotter than you can imagine. It has maybe the size of our solar system, and that's all we know about it. No scientist can tell you where this came from. They have speculations, wildest speculations, but nobody can really tell you. So where does this come from is an immediate question already. But we know that it exploded. And really in this big bang, this exploded, and this matter flew to all edges of the universe in smaller droplets. And for this now, 5 billion years ago, we have all those droplets in the universe, and of course this is all galaxies, and they started to swirl, and also these galaxies only consist of smaller droplets, isn't it? And that's the stars. So some droplets actually went a bit cold, and they started to have a crust. And this is, for instance, this picture. So you see how planets formed, and maybe even on this planet it was cool to have water, but not too cool to only be ice. And these planets started to orbit those stars. And that's maybe how it looked like on one of those planets 5 billion years ago. It had clouds, it had precipitation, so in this case snow, but could life start here? Definitely not. This is total desert. Okay, on the pole caps, maybe there was ice and those glaciers formed, but again, life doesn't start in ice. We also had those crust holes, so in the holes of the crust, sometimes this hot mass came up again, but what happens if life wants to start here? It just gets obliterated. But here's another thing, we have underwater volcanoes, and science says, well, in this environment, boiling water, there's maybe also phosphorus, there's carbon, there's water, there's nitrogen, all together, it's all mixed as fast as it can because it boils, and people say, yeah, so in this environment 5 billion years ago, this structure could have evolved randomly. So this is a molecule that has all these chemical elements I told you about. And yeah, with some imagination, yeah, if this bounces into each other all the time, this could have evolved in this water. I want to explain a bit more what this is. Of course, this is DNA, and DNA has this double helix and those bridges, isn't it? And every such bridge is either a 1 or a 0, basically. So this is like in a computer, a 1 or a 0. And so if it's a black and blue, then it's a 1. If it's a green and red, then it's a 0, basically. So this is ones and zeros. And I, as a computer scientist, I know about those. I work with them all the time. So you can encode everything in these ones and zeros. For instance, the thickness of your hair is 50 micrometers. This can be encoded here in those genes. And you see how much of this is needed. So so someone or the random process has to program a whole life cell in this code. And for instance, also heartbeat average frequency is somewhere in your genes written into, not really, but imagine it like that. And, and now the question is not so much whether a human would be popping up out of the ground. The question is rather whether the smallest possible life form can be randomly encoded like this. Now, what is the smallest possible life form? We have a good idea about it. We have really a good idea about it. This is, if you know it, Escherichia coli, E. coli. Some of you might have seen them in college under the microscope. It's so fascinating how they're growing here. They can multiply like this. And this is a dissection of an E. coli bacteria. You see how small they are, 2 micrometers. And in this dissection, you see even in yellow, their genes. This is the DNA. There is 1,000,000 such bits. 1,000,000 bits is in this DNA. But that's not enough. So that's totally not enough. There is those copy mechanisms in yellow, in orange, copy mechanism, and then in purple the translation mechanism that creates the building blocks of life, let's say enzymes. And actually in blue there are those building blocks. And for this E. coli there's even a motor that runs a propeller like an airplane. It is an electrical motor. And this propels a hair so that the E. coli bacteria can move in the water. Now this is extremely complicated already. But we can say science also agrees, I think they totally agree that this can be smaller, this can be maybe 10 times smaller. Now this is still quite complex, but let's agree for the sake of the argument that it's enough to do the DNA. Let's say this is enough. It's not enough because we need all this other stuff, but let's say it's enough. And let's say it's 10 times smaller than this. This is 100,000 bits. 100,000. And what we hear now, what we see now here, is exactly the game we played earlier. And this is all the planets that 5 billion years ago stayed standing after 1,000 turns. Isn't it? So they had heads. This is those in the whole universe. Now let's see one other turn. So we flip, and half of those planets make a mistake. This life is never going to live. The others have the correct next code. Let's go on. Again, half of them have a mistake, the other ones had the right code, and so on. So we see how those planets get less and less.
Yeah.
Only two now, me, and only one. And that's Earth. That's Earth, because we live here, isn't it? So, makes sense. So Earth had here the chance to 107, and now goes on. It somehow doesn't stop. It just goes on.
It's changed.
And it's changed. And it counts up. 3,000, 4,000, 10,000. And it counts up 90,000. And so on. 90,000 and 99,000. 99,900, 99,990, and 99,998, and it stays standing. And it comes to 100,000. And the first life was formed. Only the DNA, but that's what we mean for the sake of the argument. But it's like the guy who stayed standing for so long, and the others are all clear. This is not random anymore. This cannot be a true coin. So this is somewhat the point. And you know what it really needs? What life is really about. I want to show you a video now because it will blow your mind another time here. So let's watch this video. I hope the audio is alright. Yes, Tolu? Good. Okay, 10 minutes video.
What I am going to show you are the astonishing molecular machines that create the living fabric of your body. Now, molecules are really tiny, and by tiny, I mean really. They're smaller than the wavelength of light, so we have no way to directly observe them. But through science, we do have a fairly good idea what's going on down at the molecular scale. So what we can do is actually tell you about the molecules, but we don't really have a direct way of showing you the molecules. One way around this is to draw pictures. And this idea is actually nothing new. Scientists have always created pictures as part of their thinking and discovery process. They draw pictures of what they're observing with their eyes, through technology like telescopes and microscopes, and also what they're thinking about in their mind. I picked two well-known examples because they're very well known for expressing science through art. And I started with Galileo, who used the world's first telescope to look at the moon. And he transformed our understanding of the moon. The perception of the 17th century was the moon was a perfect heavenly sphere. But what Galileo saw was a rocky, barren world, which he expressed through his watercolor painting. Another scientist with very big ideas, the superstar of biology, is Charles Darwin, with this famous entry in his notebook. He begins in the top left-hand corner with "I think," and then sketches out the first tree of life, which is his perception of how all the species, all living things on Earth are connected through evolutionary history. The origin of species through natural selection and divergence from an ancestral population. Even as a scientist, I used to go to lectures by molecular biologists and find them completely incomprehensible with all the fancy technical language and jargon that they would use in describing their work. Until I encountered the artworks of David Goodsell, who was a molecular biologist at the Scripps Institute. And his pictures are all, everything's accurate, it's all to scale, and his work illuminated for me what the molecular world inside it is like. So this is a transection through blood. In the top left-hand corner, you've got this yellow-green area. The yellow-green area is the fluids of blood, which is mostly water, but it's also antibodies, sugars, hormones, that kind of thing. And the red region is a slice into a red blood cell, and those red molecules are hemoglobin. They are actually red. That's what gives blood its color. And hemoglobin acts as a molecular sponge to soak up the oxygen in your lungs and then carry it to other parts of the body. I was very much inspired by this image many years ago, and I wondered whether we could use computer graphics to represent the molecular world. What would it look like? And that's how I really began. So let's begin. This is DNA in its classic double helix form, and it's from X-ray crystallography. It's an accurate model of DNA. If we unwind the double helix and unzip the two strands, you see these things that look like teeth. Those are the letters of genetic code, the 25,000 genes you've got written in your DNA. This is what they typically talk about, the genetic code. This is what they're talking about. But I want to talk about a different aspect of DNA science, and that is the physical nature of DNA. It's these two strands that run in opposite directions for reasons I can't go into right now, but they physically run in opposite directions, which creates a number of complications for your living cells, as you're about to see, most particularly when DNA is being copied. And so, what I'm about to show you is an accurate representation of the actual DNA replication machine that's occurring right now inside your body, at least 2002 biology. So DNA is entering the production line from the left-hand side, and it hits this collection, this miniature biochemical machines that are pulling apart the DNA strand and making an exact copy. So DNA comes in and hits this blue donut-shaped structure, and it's ripped apart into its two strands. One strand can be copied directly, and you can see these things pulling off down to the bottom there. But things aren't so simple for the other strand because it must be copied backwards. So it's thrown out repeatedly in these loops and copied one section at a time, creating two new DNA molecules. Now, you have billions of this machine right now whirring away inside you, copying your DNA with exquisite fidelity. It's an accurate representation, and it's pretty much at the correct speed at what's occurring inside you. So I left out error correction and a bunch of other things. This was work from a number of years ago. Thank you. This is work from a number of years ago, but what I want to show you next is updated science, it's updated technology. So again, we begin with DNA, and it's jiggling and wiggling there because of the surrounding supermolecules which are stripped away so you can see something. DNA is about 2 nanometers across, which is really quite tiny. But in each one of your cells, each strand of DNA is about 30 to 40 million nanometers long. So to keep the DNA organized, regulate access to the genetic code, it's wrapped around these purple proteins. I've labeled them purple here. It's packaged up and bundled up. All of its field of view is a single strand of DNA. This huge package of DNA is called a chromosome. And we'll come back to chromosomes in a minute. We're pulling out, we're zooming out through a nuclear pore, which is sort of the gateway to this compartment that holds all the DNA, called the nucleus. All of this field of view is about a semester's worth of biology, and I've got 7 minutes, so we're not going to be able to do that today. No, I'm being told no. This is the way a living cell looks down a light microscope, and it's been filmed under time lapse, is why you can see it moving. The nuclear envelope breaks down. These sausage-shaped things are the chromosomes. We'll focus on them. They go through this very striking motion that is focused on these little red spots. When the cell feels it's ready to go, It rips apart the chromosome. One set of DNA goes to one side, the other side gets the other set of DNA, identical copies of DNA, and then the cell splits down the middle. And again, you have billions of cells undergoing this process right now inside of you. Now we're going to rewind and just focus on the chromosome and look at its structure and describe it. So again, here we are at that equator moment. The chromosomes line up, and if we isolate just one chromosome, we're going to pull it out and have a look at its structure. So this is one of the biggest molecular structures that you have, in, at least as far as we've discovered so far, inside of it. So this is a single chromosome, and you have two strands of DNA in each chromosome. One is bundled up into one sausage, the other strand is bundled up into the other sausage. These things that look like whiskers that are sticking out from either side are the dynamic scaffolding of the cell. They're called microtubules, that's the name that's important. But what we're going to focus on is this red region. I've labeled it right here. And it's the interface between the dynamic scaffolding and the chromosomes. It is obviously central to the movement of chromosomes. We have no idea, really, as to how it's achieving that movement. We've been studying this thing called the genetic war for over 100 years, with intense study, and we're still just beginning to discover what it's all about. It is made up of about 200 different types of proteins, thousands of proteins in total. It is a signal broadcasting system. It broadcasts through chemical signals, telling the rest of the cells when it's ready, when it feels that everything is aligned and ready to go for the separation of the chromosomes. It is able to couple onto the growing and shrinking microtubules. It's involved with the growing of the microtubules, and it's able to transiently couple onto them. It's also a tension sensing system. It's able to feel when the cell is ready, when the chromosome is correctly positioned. It's turning green here because it feels that everything is just right. And you'll see that there's one little last bit that's still remaining red, and it's walked away down the microtubule. That is the signal broadcasting system, sending out the stop signal, and it's walked away. I mean, it's that mechanical. It's molecular clockwork. This is how you work at the molecular scale. So, with a little bit of molecular eye candy, we've got kinesins, which are the orange ones. They're little molecular courier molecules walking one way. And here are the dyneins. They're carrying that very broadcasting system, and they've got their long legs so they can step around obstacles and so on. So again, this is all derived accurately from the science. The problem is we can't show it to you any other way. Exploring at the frontier of science, at the frontier of human understanding, is mind-blowing. Discovering this stuff is certainly a pleasurable incentive to work in science. But most medical researchers, this is just discovering this stuff is simply steps on the path to the big goals, which are to eradicate disease, to eliminate the suffering and the misery that disease causes, and to lift people out of poverty. Thank you.
Yeah, talking about eradicating suffering. So, not all suffering is diseases. That's a problem. So, but whether we're gonna eradicate all diseases, I don't know. Don't want to debate it now. But honestly, I had a problem, or I still have a problem, and it's anxiety. I feel anxious sometimes. It's better sometimes, sometimes worse. And I want a cure for that one. And certainly he's not going to help me there. But, and then when I prepared this presentation, actually I had an accident and I fell down with the bike. Even this wound is still visible here. This was really deep wound. And I was quite shocked. I actually bleeded and had to drive home as a cycle home bleeding. And when I opened the door, I had to shout, "Hey, Jolene, help me, help me." And we bounded it up as good as we can. And then, of course, next day, it was night, so next morning I went to the hospital. And yeah, gladly, the doctor said it's nothing, basically, it's going to heal. And that was a total relief. And when I took this sick leave, I really watched this heal day after day. And you know why it healed? Because all those cells duplicate all the time and refill and so on. And I had to really think about my body. I really had this moment of, what's actually happening in my body every second that I don't think about? It's really so extremely amazing. Which also made me think, wow, the future is much, much more complicated. So if I should survive a few more days, it's much more complicated that I have in control. I cannot do much. It's much more than this, what I can do. So I somehow let go of the control. I somehow said, fine, I have to trust in my body. I also have to trust in God. And yeah, it helped me really a lot with my anxiety, I must say. But this was really state-of-the-art science. And what do you say? Are you like Jacob, who would insist? No, James, that was a right coin. I insist. This was random, and everybody knows, no, Jacob, this wasn't random anymore. So, but actually, what do the atheists say to this? What do the atheists say? And I have read this book, Atheism by an Atheist, of course, Introduction to Atheism, and I have a few quotes here, so not too many though, but here's what atheists are saying. So he's, for instance, saying the evidence for atheism is to be found in the fact that there is an absence of evidence for anything else. You can make many words or few. Basically, he's blind. He doesn't see the evidence, and if there is evidence, he doesn't want to see it. That's basically what he's saying. So yeah, close your eyes, and then you just don't see the evidence. That's basically it. There's another quote of him, I find this also interesting. Read the book on evolution, and you can see how evolution accounts for the appearance of design we find. In a sense, A, have you never read a book on evolution yet? And I'm saying, have you slept in the biology of college? Because evolution only starts after the first cell has been formed. So he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm sorry. Or he knows what he's talking about and he just wants to find the argument to somehow stay skeptical, isn't it? Let's actually hear also somebody who has not slept in biology. And this is Gerhard Ertl, for instance, Nobel Prize of Chemistry 2007. Actually, I almost knew him personally, but my boss has known him personally because my boss has done a PhD in his institute, and when the Nobel Prize was awarded, they were all glad because they had a toast on this professor. And he says the following: life is a gigantic miracle, and although we approach scientific explanations, one question must remain: why all this? Why all this? Here, I believe in God. So he has definitely the clearer view, and it just makes sense. Yeah, there must be a God who created all this. By the way, I have also written a book myself now. Whoever wants to have such a book now, I have 8 copies, and for these, this is a preprint. You cannot buy this yet, but those 8 who want to buy this book for £5, I make a friendly price. You can have it for £5, but if you give it back to me with all your notes in it, like really everything that should be phrased better, then I give you the £5 back. But I get this book to then edit the final version. So, what I showed you today was just really the tip of the iceberg. I'm explaining it all really in this book. So it's only 100 pages. This is readable. But actually, I want to conclude with a quote from God Himself. I mean, it's in the Bible, and the prophet claims it's from God, so I do think it's from God Himself. What does God say to all this? I want to read it to you. I have plans to take care of you. I want to actually read it from the paper, sorry. Not to abandon you. Plans to give you the future you hope for. When you pray to me, I will listen. When you come looking for me, you will find me. Yes, when you get serious about finding me and want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. So God says, look for me. Uh, yeah, you have to study books also to do this. You have to do a lot of things. But if you do it as the most important thing, you will find the ultimate answer. So that's actually the presentation. Thanks for listening. I want to open up for really any question you might have, as critical as it might be. All right, maybe someone can do the mic, or
I doubt we need
you doubt it. Okay, yeah. So I'd like to really open up. You had your hands up, so.
I was going to ask what was the conclusion in the end then? Does science point towards God or not? What would you say?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, maybe it wasn't as clear. So you have to have an other explanation for why life happened. And the other explanation is the atheists are saying this was by chance. Now, the game we played earlier, nobody believes that this guy still had a real coin with a heads and the tails. And at the end, it's still saying, well, what do you believe? Do you believe, I mean, science found out that life is like this, and we also know how improbable it is to be created randomly in the underwater volcano. It is basically impossible. So there must be a creator. That's the argument. And this argument, I don't see a counter argument for that. But I leave you up to it. I mean, you can still say, well, I believe it's all random. So, but what science points to is clearly a creator. I would say, do you have a follow-up question, or do you know what I'm saying?
I don't. If the person has one more speak.
No, you can ask one more question.
I was going to disagree actually. I don't think science necessarily points towards proving or disproving that a God would exist. I think it's just simply stating or trying to find out how the things you can see around us observe work pretty much. So there can be evolution, for example. There can be the Big Bang and whatnot. That doesn't mean necessarily that a God will be above that to create those things.
So what is then the cause of life? Alternative cause?
God could be the cause of life.
Mm.
I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying that science either says God exists or not.
Yeah, all right. I mean, science stops at stating those things, isn't it? That's somehow right. Yeah. But I would also say, so you have to have hypotheses. So, for instance, Einstein. So there's a bit of a story. I cannot go into it, but in the book I go into it. So there was a theory in the 20s that how do I explain this? Basically, a very weird theory about the atoms, and basically, so Einstein really said this cannot be true. There must be an extension to the theory. And actually, I would claim 50 years later they found the extension. I would claim that. And there's many such things. So if you find something, you say that cannot be everything. You can, with scientific confidence, say there must be an extension. I mean, so I would say yes. To me, science points to that. At least science would point to the fact that life has to be created. But I'll leave you with that answer. So maybe next question.
Yeah, I believe that it's God, and it's not just a form of a guessing thing, I believe that it is God that creates everything on the earth, and in the world.
So yeah.
I believe it's God.
All right. Next question. thanks. So yeah.
So let's play the devil's advocate here. What scientific experiments have been done to try to replicate the idea of just random chance creating stuff out of chemicals?
Oh yeah, this has been done.
But who's been doing it while they don't want to do?
Yeah, they have. No, they have done it. So they have mixed those chemicals like in the underwater volcano, and what they found is that those first building blocks of DNA would form, but only a hexagon, for instance.
Yeah.
Or a little bit more than a hexagon. And then the theory would go well, of course, if you have enough time. Those hexagons would touch each other and maybe form bonds and so on. But this has not been done. This cannot be done. So what they have done is mix those elements, boiled them, and they found those hexagons. But if I may go back, maybe this is anyway a good picture to end with. So that's what I talk about, this hexagon. This was formed in this experiment.
Yeah.
And now maybe this was formed in an experiment, but there was never this in the experiment. Never. I mean, this can't be done. Okay, is that the answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So is what you're saying there, how many heads in a row happened to form the hexagon versus the million or more? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm thinking the hexagons are actually naturally forming in this boiling pot. So, if I go one more, so such a molecule here would form, and maybe even, I say, given enough time to boil this for decades, okay, maybe even this was formed, but this is just not enough. But this was never formed. I just give in to the atheist as much as I can to say, well, I give you this argument, but still it doesn't work at all. Anyway, is that good? Yeah, James.
It's a bit like a slightly different topic, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this. And it's a bit of a paradoxical kind of question, but with the recent emergence, but also probably the past few years before that, of AI, artificial intelligence, we know that scientists and people who are involved with technology have been able to almost now create life through a computer. Also not just being the responses to question and answers, but actually there's a thought that this AI has been sentient, which means it understands its own existence. So say if some kind of being was to be able to access all the scientific and mathematical and all the data that's out there, and they came to the conclusion that there was a God, would people believe them? And also would people just want to completely shut it down? And also, if they know that there's a God, and they are, of course, electronic forms, they're not physical human beings with atoms and molecules like us, wouldn't they question their own existence or their own makers? Why would you create me if I couldn't, go to God?
So that's actually also a question. I want to say something to that, not too long. So, in my opinion, we totally overestimate AI. We do. Maybe they can replicate phrases we say, and it can be quite intriguing. But honestly, an AI will never, or at this stage, not think about where do I come from. They will only iterate what the internet is feeded. So that's just that. I mean, yeah. You go say.
Enough to level of us things out in the wild and 4chan not hold it. Next thing you know, they turned it into a neo-Nazi. There's the funniest thing.
Yeah, there's those videos. Yeah, but it's an interesting one. Yeah, you know the question? Yeah, go please.
So isn't the definition of a miracle something that science can't explain exactly? So I'm kind of,
we come to that if you want. Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, you're saying science points towards being an existence of God. That's your viewpoint, I think.
Yeah.
I understand. But then that's kind of contradictory towards a miracle. I think what you're really saying is a sort of causation argument. So because we exist, there must be a cause for that. It's not necessarily the science aspect of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So you're asking a question that definitely also I would like to suggest you read my book. I really do. But that's not the full answer. But no, wait. I want to answer short. But I really elaborate in this book. I make a very elaborate argument also about miracles, and maybe in short. So what is a miracle? Somebody throws 100 dice and all of them show sixes. That is not, in a sense, a miracle because you can imagine this could happen, isn't it? So let's say that's a good view of a miracle. But in a sense, the chance is so low that this cannot happen. So the condition that something like this happened and was sufficiently improbable, I say points to supernatural. Now you don't know anything about the supernatural. Please don't start a religion. You have no idea about the supernatural. So let's say this happens. Somebody comes and says, "Yeah, throw these dice," and then they all show sixes, and it's actually true dice. It's not a fake. You shouldn't do anything because, well, we know nothing about the supernatural. But if somebody is coming and saying so, and I make the example with Jesus, but can be done with many things. So Jesus says, "I'm gonna raise from the dead, guys." And even this was in Isaiah really prophesied, and we have scrolls of Isaiah that predate the birth of Jesus. So so here's coming somebody who says, "I'm gonna raise from the dead." Now he's actually dying, and he was dead, as dead one can be. I mean, because we know that the water flew out of his lungs and he basically are dead. And even a magician had done this video one time and said, "You can do so many tricks whilst you're alive, but if you're dead, you cannot do another trick." So basically the same. And then he raised from the dead. Now you have to imagine, you have to also examine, did this really happen? Now I think it did happen because the history points to it. There's no other way. And then you have to say, well, this guy actually prophesied his own resurrection. And then you would start thinking, oh, he knows about the supernatural. If that makes sense. So that's my answer. And I try to elaborate this more also in the book. Anyway, next question. Or any other question. Maybe one or two more and then we conclude. I don't know, yeah.
Can I just say one thing about DNA? Because DNA, up to now, I don't think scientists are able to kind of split it down into three coherent components, find out where it comes from. And one of the things I've read about is that DNA is a Morse code. That's what God uses to communicate somehow. We talked about different types of dogs, cows, they all got different DNA. But truly to understand DNA, that's the only have a group, they have this, and it's only God that can really tell us more about it because of evidence. And we still trying to find whether it's sorting it out.
I think, if I can interject, I think just because we haven't got an answer to something, doesn't necessarily mean there won't be in the future. Science has always been about, like you said, there must be an extension to it.
Yeah.
That maybe we have the technology now to do that. Maybe it's wishful thinking that we will in the future, but I don't think we can necessarily just say, oh, we don't know, so it's God.
So can I answer to this shortly? So I think science actually knows pretty much everything we can know, because we know how the universe works, the bigger stuff, how they move, and we really also know, now this is about also Richard Feynman, the other guy I showed a picture, so the elementary particles, how they move, we know it. And Richard Feynman even said this is the best theory that ever came about, because everybody says that. It's the best theory, it's the most exact theory that ever came about these tiny particles. And I will claim it's actually a very strange hope to say probably find another law soon. Maybe we never find again a other law. And then this argument is maybe a bit difficult because no, there's not going to be another scientific discovery that then tells us, oh, it's all just different again, or it's all inbuilt in the atoms that life would form out of nothing. That's not going to happen, you know. So anyway, one last question maybe, and then we conclude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
You talk about miracles. Yeah. Going to a simpler level from biology, I find knows exactly where that book is. But it doesn't have eyes, it has no brain, and yet there is a gravitational pull between them, and that exists in all matter, sun, earth, moon, galaxies, and even on a micro scale with all the little forces that occur at the QED level, like Feynman talked about. Yeah, that's a miracle because that's so structured and so it works so well. Without it, we'd just be floating about. Everything would just be like a gas, an energy that has no structure to it. And to me, that proves that there is this intelligence behind it that's designed to talk because it's so precise and we can mathematically figure it all out and calculate how powerful one object is attracted to another. But that is a miracle because there's no life in this book apart from the fact it's Word of God. There's no life in it. But they know where each other are. They know exactly where they are and they're attracted to each other, which is incredible. That is a miracle.
I mean, maybe you should do the next talk. Okay, let's conclude here. Thanks for all your engagement tonight. I was also really pleased with the evening, so there's also a bar open. I'm